Testing.
Check.
Gotcha.
Yep. Must be just a little short right in there.
Yeah, I don't know. I gotta change that cable out and figure that out.
I'm from that dirt. I'm all about that dirt. I'm throwing dirt. I miss that dirt. Gotta get back to I'm a dirt trackaholic. Call it what you call it. Saturday night, I am so Kenny Wallace on that dirt. I miss that dirt. Gotta get back to it. I've been the Kenny Wallace of the rap game. Ever since I hit him with that dirt track thing. Now nationwide, everybody knows my name. They're like, mama, that's Kenny Montgomery. He sings that song we like. Yeah, boy, that's me. Roll out the trailer, I'm flossing. Them Hoosier tires glossing. Them cold kind we're tossing. They know I came to wreck it, yet I rarely bring out a caution. I hit the high side, boy, I park it for Brian Clausen.
Welcome to Throttled Up the Podcast, often imitated, never duplicated, your weekly home for the best in motorsports coverage.
Even your grandpa talking about, man, that boy too cold. We don't sit on 24s, we don't ride on spinners. I'm posted up on them.
Welcome back to another week of Throttled Up the Podcast. And Matt, you and I in studio. We're hoping we're going to have a guest here coming on, the president of Racinboys, Scott Traylor. But
feels a little bit like the old days, just me and you.
Yeah, it's a little throwback here, and Scott is a Central Time guy, so we may have got some things crossed up with our timing, but got some messages out to him. We'll see if we get a hold of him here in just a second and get him on here. But
so you got your arc built?
You know what, man? I don't yet, but it's about time to get started, man. And
yeah.
You know, you and I were just talking before we went on air, and I said, you know, are we going to get any racing in this weekend? And, you know, I don't know that we're going to.
It doesn't look good. I mean, I always hope we race, but it looks like it's going to be kind of a rainy, gloomy weekend.
And, you know, the thing is, I saw Billy Moyer Jr. posted on his Twitter page. He said, how is it that there is nowhere within driving distance that doesn't have a 40 to 60% chance of rain Saturday? And it's true. Like, you look over, you know, across the Midwest, we're all going to get it.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
for those guys, it's not worth taking that gamble of coming across in order to get started.
Yeah.
So,
you know, they travel, all night to get somewhere just to get rained out and have to travel back for nothing.
So here's what I want to ask you, because we are, you know, Scott Traylor obviously there with Racinboys. He is obviously in the sprint car midget world. They've done the Chili Bowl a lot. And, you know, you and I have had good fun going back and forth here with sprint cars versus late models. And I want to have a you know, obviously for those who don't know, we obviously play that up for the show.
Oh, yeah.
But a real conversation. What is it that excites you more about the late models over sprint cars?
Honestly, I think it's just that's what I grew up watching. You know, that was when I went to the racetrack. That's what I was used to seeing rolling out there. I got familiar with that, kind of like you did the sprint cars. And, you know, I enjoy anything racing. You know, I would watch anything race. You know, I'd watch lawnmowers race. But I just a late model guy, but you can't take nothing away from the sprint cars. Those guys they're daredevils, man. That's the thing. But I think the biggest difference now is the technology that's changed in the late model, where a sprint car is almost the exact same beast that it was from the get-go.
Isn't it crazy though? And we've talked about that, and I think that's the thing, because I agree with you 100%. Like I said, for people who don't know, we play this up big time on the show because I love late model racing, and I do.
Yes.
Don't get me wrong. I mean, my first passion is watching sprint cars. It's what I grew up doing, but you're exactly right when you say it. That's the amazing thing, I think, and we've talked about it before. The sprint car has relatively stayed the same outside of adjustable shocks and in cockpit adjustable shocks for the driver, and really safety. The car's the same,
exactly the same.
And the late model couldn't have been different in the last 40 years. I mean,
the last 10 to 15, it's changed dramatically.
Yeah.
So you'd think, it's hard to believe that a car that runs around an old dirt track that's rough as can be, they focus on aerodynamics as much as they do in a late model.
Yeah, and it is. And it's amazing how much it affects a car.
Yeah.
When it's in traffic and trying to work through those. But I agree with you. I think the biggest thing, and I think people miss the boat with this a lot of times, and I know there is, and it is crazy because there is a true sprint car fan base and there is a true late model fan base. And for the first time, and I'm going to give a lot of credit to Kyle Larson, what he's doing, we're starting to see more and more of those crossover fans. But, it is exciting. I mean, I would love to see more late model guys get in sprint cars and go run some of these races. That's what makes the Chili Bowl so special, is it's not just sprint car guys that go down there to make the show.
Well, I think that's what makes, like you said, the Chili Bowl so special is everybody in every racing aspect wants to go down there and try that out. So, I mean, you don't have any idea who's going to be in a midget when you go down there.
No, and you're exactly right. And it's one of the most important, wins for those guys. And that's, everybody wants to go down there and try it out. So, and I agree with you 100%. I would watch lawnmowers race. If it's good racing, I'll watch it. But I have to say that since doing the show, it has definitely, late models have grown on me much, much more than they ever had. And I want to throw this point out there. I think it's important too. We've talked, what track you grew up at is huge. It's not just what you watched.
Oh, yeah.
Because late models at Bloomington can put on a good show, but it's a tough track to put on a good show at. So when you come watch late models at Brownstown, you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. When you come watch sprints at Brownstown, they put on a great show. Most of the drivers don't like being there to run the show, but they put on a great show. But it's not like watching sprints at Bloomington Speedway.
I agree.
And I think those tracks play as much into it as anything.
I think if there was ever a track built for a late model, it was Brownstown.
I can't argue with that at all.
I think that track was made for a late model.
And the other thing is, I think the other thing that amazes me when we talk about that, it's like going back to Tyler Kane last week when we had him on. To hear him talk about that Knoxville would be his place. I think Knoxville may be the one place, I shouldn't say that, Knoxville and Eldora, I'll put those two there, that the sprint cars and the late models both put on unbelievable shows.
I'll give you that.
And I'll be honest, and this is a little bit blasphemous, I guess, probably Knoxville over Eldora, because Eldora, when they put the wings on and they're getting ready to run the King's Royal this weekend, it's great. But Knoxville across the board, I think, is pretty special.
I'd almost throw the dirt track down there at Charlotte in on that also.
That's a good point. That's a great point.
Yeah, I think that, those three tracks are kind of, you can mix and match and interchange. And any more that SRX class of Tony Stewart's can run with about anything too.
Man, and let's jump on that just a little bit, and because again we're waiting here. Hopefully, going to get Scott Traylor on from Racinboys here in just a little bit. But I think the important thing when we talk about that, and I know there was so much, I don't know what questions about. I guess would be a good way to put it. Questions about Tony Stewart starting this SRX, and I want to say this too. I'm about tired of the people that, because it's been successful, that now have to put it down and say, oh, look, it's Tony Stewart winning a series owned by Tony Stewart, winning at a track owned by Tony Stewart. Don't put the guy down for being that involved in the racing industry.
But those are the same guys that complain about people complaining about the sport. I think, Tony's opening up another venue that people can go race and people can watch races.
Yeah, and that's the thing, again. And I, like I said, I love it because it's exciting. I love seeing some of these legends back. I love the idea of the local ringer that comes in. Yeah. I love that we're going to see Bill and Chase both on the track here at the Nashville Fairgrounds. I mean, these are all things that, and again, you and I have talked, we are our own worst enemy in the racing world. We should be jumping up and down that Tony and Ray Evernham and CBS Sports has put this together, and they're putting it on Saturday nights on primetime television.
Yes.
But instead, we find ways to tear it apart.
But race fans are the worst at that. I mean, across the board, instead of building it up so it'll grow larger, all they want to do is tear it down and beat it down and complain about it.
All right. Hey, looks like, Matt, here I've got Scott in our waiting room. So let me make sure here. Let's get our video on. It looks like we got sound. So let me go ahead and let's bring Scott Traylor on here with us. Let's bring him in.
I'm glad you know how to do all that.
Hey, Scott, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can.
All right. Hey.
Let me get my video going here. There we go.
All right, man.
Hey,
we
guys.
got.
I got it.
I have mic envy.
Scott's got the setup.
Oh, yeah.
Let me see here. I got to get Scott pulled up on our feed. Where are we at here? All right, Scott. Well, we're going to jump right in here.
All right.
As I'm getting, there we go. I got Scott now.
Okay.
Got to get him fixed a little bit here on my cropping, but Scott, man, we want to jump right in, and obviously, president of Racinboys, you've been around, the broadcast and racing world for a long time now, man. And where does that story start for how you got involved in all of this?
Well, it would start in 1996. I was a local racer. I raced at I-70 Speedway back when it was a pavement track back in the day, and Lakeside Speedway when it was a pavement track. And I had a chance to do a morning show with Randy Miller, who was a big-time country western station here, Q104 at the time. And I did segments with him. And it kind of rolled into an opportunity. I was a caller one time on a talk show with Kevin Kiesman at Sports Radio 810 WHB. And Kevin, one day after I called in to harass him about not talking about motorsports, because the local sports guys, they never talk about motorsports, right?
Never.
Oh, never.
Never. It's one of my pet peeves, and it's one of my goals to just grind on the local media until they cave in. But that's a whole nother story. Anyway, long story short is, at the end of that call, Kevin said, "Scott, hang on the phone. I'd like to talk to you." And I guess it was 3 weeks later, I was on the air at Sports Radio 810 WHB, and that was 1998. And I've been there ever since. So we've been doing that show. Kirk Elliott's been with me, I think, 21 years. I did that show by myself for a year, and I did it a couple of years with Tom Wilson. who passed away. Oh gosh, I guess it's been about 14, 15 years ago now. I started off with Tom Wilson, and then I tried to do the show by myself a little bit, and I needed somebody to bounce everything off of. Kirk Elliott was on another radio station, and all they were talking about was NASCAR, and he kind of expressed his concern about that's all they talked about. He wanted to talk about some local racing at the time, and that's kind of what our show was at the time. It was more about the local scene, and that's how it all started. We just kind of evolved into it, and then in 2003 we started the website. And back in the early 2000s, websites were all about forum boards, and that's how we made our name, was on the forum board. We really, it was a smoking forum board, 400 or 500 people on there at any given time, and just got lucky and just fell into place with Emmett Hahn. He come up to us one day. We were doing our radio show down there at the Chili Bowl on a Saturday morning, and he come up and he said, "You guys ever thought about doing the Chili Bowl or the shootout live?" And that's where it all started, really.
It's amazing how things like that can fall into place. Right place, right time is a huge opportunity. So when he comes down and says, "Have you ever thought about doing the Chili Bowl live?" What goes into the process of even trying to figure out how in the heck you're going to pull this off?
Well, if you remember right, the first, gosh, I don't know how many years it was, 5, 6, 7 years. It was audio only. And to be honest with you, we gave it away. We didn't even charge people for it. That was back in the days where we were just glad to get it up on the air and share it with everybody. But I guess in the end, that was pretty simple. And we had somewhere between 7, 8, 9,000 listeners when it was free. I wish we could have said we had that when it was paid per view, but it's not the case. As you know the business well.
Yes.
So anyway, long story short is that another outfit came in and did the shootout. Emmett wasn't real happy with that outfit and came to me and said, "Hey, listen, would you guys be interested in doing the shootout?" And then it evolved into the Chili Bowl. So we were very blessed to do that. This was our 16th year doing that, the Chili Bowl. And I don't know, gosh, I guess 7, 8 years we've done the shootout now. So it just, setting yourself up, just being in the right place at the right time. You always hear that, right? Setting yourself up the right place at the right time. And that just happened to be the case. We were down there doing a radio show, and, we're on this smoking radio station in Kansas City. It's a 50,000 watt, blowtorch here in the Midwest. And just got lucky, it picked us. So we've been with them ever since.
And I gotta say, man, and being a huge fan of the Chili Bowl, as almost every race fan is, but you guys do a tremendous job in your coverage down there. It's always top-notch coverage, beyond just showing the racing action, really getting to experience the Chili Bowl at home as well.
Well, there's a lot of effort in it. And listen, I don't claim to be the smartest guy of the bunch of our group. I'm not the smartest guy. But what I was taught at an early age is to hire people that are smarter than you, right?
Yep.
Get the people that know what to do, hire them and let them do their job. It's just like hiring Heather. Heather it does a great job at what she does. Now, me and Heather are a little bit alike, and there's some friction there once in a while, but I love her to death. And to be honest with you, she does an excellent job at what she does. And I couldn't be more happy with what we have right now at Racinboys and everything that's going on. But, it's like Roger Hess, he's the producer down there at the Chili Bowl, and all the great cameramen that we hire, because we like to think that we have possibly the best group of cameramen out of any pay-per-view at the Chili Bowl. You got Jeff Christensen, Jeff Converse, Steve Mills, Michael Jackson. There's so many great videographers that work for us that we just feel really blessed to have all those guys, And Craig Jensen was one of our guys, and we lost him a few years ago, but man, he was one of the best as well.
What kind of learning curve did you have when you went from just audio to the audio video? Did you guys have to totally regroup and try, or how'd that evolve there?
Well, let me tell you. Listen, if it wasn't for Kirk Elliott, I'd be nowhere. To be honest with you, Kirk Elliott is behind the scenes is as important to Racinboys as anybody. Because in those early years, we started out like everybody. We went out, we bought a little TriCaster Pro, the 3-camera, and this is when nobody had them, right? I mean, we were in the early ages of the TriCaster, the Pro, the 3-camera job. We used that, and then we stepped up to the studio. Boy, we thought we were pooping in high cotton right there, and when that happened, right? But long story short is that we just keep pushing and trying to do better. It's just like this year with our broadcast this year. If it wasn't for Heather and everything that she does on putting all of it together, we've got drones this year, speed shots, camera up top, cameraman. We had to keep up with the Joneses, to be honest with you. And this industry is a tough business to be in right now, as you well know.
Yeah, and I do want to say, and Heather is one. She's a huge resource for us in what we do, and I can't say enough about her either. And definitely one that anytime we've got questions, she's the smarter person that we call 99% of the time.
Well, listen, we don't want her head to get too big.
Absolutely not.
Right now, right? We don't want her to swell up too big right now. So let's. But she is really good at what she does. And listen, just to be fair to Heather, I'm not the easiest guy to work for, right? I expect a lot, and I like it my way. And sometimes, I've got to check myself once in a while. But she's put up with me so far. So far, so good.
I want to roll back here just a little bit, Scott. You talked about you in your racing career, and how long did you race?
Oh gosh, I'm really going to date myself now. This is really bad. So I started racing in 1977 at Riverside Stadium. It's a track that was just outside of downtown Kansas City in a little suburb of Riverside, Missouri. And I started there in 77. I raced 77, 78, and 82. I kind of hit and missed there just a little bit. That's when street stocks started to really come around. I don't know if you remember the history of street stocks, but they really started to evolve in the mid 70s and early 70s, 73, 74, 75, 76, and right in that area. And at our racetrack at Riverside Stadium, we had 100 street stocks on any given night.
Wow.
Down there. It was crazy. And Riverside Stadium, just so I'd love to give them the shout out, was run by a man who I love dearly, Larry Castor. And Riverside Stadium was the first racetrack outside of the state of Iowa to run IMCA modifieds. So a little tidbit of information there. But anyway, that's where I started, and then I raced. I took off after 82, about 5 years, and I helped a local guy by the name of Billy Deckman, won a lot of races helping him, and he kind of taught me what it took to win. And so I came back in 87, and I raced from 87 all the way up to 2010. At that point, I think I might have taken 1 year off somewhere in there, but for the most part, I took, that's right, I did take off a year, but I went and I was a crew member for an ASA team, AJ Cooper. I started out as a tire changer, and then I worked my way up as a spotter for him. So I ended up spotting for him for some ASA races back in the early 90s, and then I got right back into it, went to Lakeside, and I raced Lakeside and I-70 all the way up until 2003, and then 2003 I got really silly and bought an ARCA team. I started an ARCA team. Now, you want to throw away some cash. Let me tell you, my first race, I qualified. This is back in the early 2000s when every Cup team had a development team, if you remember. And my first race, I qualified 11th out of 57 cars, was running 8th late in the race and wrecked. Clint Boyer came down to me. I don't know if you know the story about Clint Boyer. He came down to me after the race. He goes, "Man, that car's really fast." The part I forgot to tell you is I spun out on the 4th lap. I restarted 40th and worked my way back up to 8th. Anyway, long story short, Clint come down after the race. He says, "Man, that car's really fast. When's your next race?" I said, "I got to fix the car. I'm done for the year." He goes, "What if I come up with some Sonic? No, you come up with a little bit of money, and let's try to make Nashville." I said, "Let's do it." So we round up a few sponsors, Praxair Distribution, Sonic Drive-Ins of Kansas City, and we put that money together with another sponsor of ours, Criminal Painting. He spent some good money on us as well. And we went down to Nashville. Clint qualified 7th, led 47 laps, lost the lead with 9 laps to go. We run 2nd. This is only our 2nd race as a team. Run 2nd to Mario Gosling. Well, the hook was set then, right? The first race I did pretty good. 2nd race we almost win. We go down to Charlotte. We run in the top 5 behind Kyle Busch all night long. I had an MB2 Pontiac. I bought it. It was a Kenny Schrader's M&M car.
Mm-hmm.
And long story short is, after those 3 successful runs, I thought, man, I can do this. I could be a team owner. And I was friends. I got to get this small piece in. I was really good friends with Todd Braun, Jason Leffler's car owner, Shane Mule's car owner back in the day. And one day, Todd and I were out. He was in Kansas City. We went out to eat dinner, and we went out and had a few drinks afterwards. And he says, "Scott, come over here. I want to give you some advice." And I thought, oh, this is it, man. He's going to give me the secret recipe to being successful in this level, right? He puts his arm up around me. He looks me straight in the eye, and he goes, "Get out now." That's what he said. Get out now. True story. It was shortly after that I got out, after spending my life savings on race cars. So I took all those ARCA cars, I sold them, and I bought TV equipment.
and here you are now.
Here I am.
So looking ahead, obviously, like you said, you guys continue to push the limits, in the broadcasting world with the drones, keeping up with the Joneses, as you said, which we all know and feel. Where do you see this broadcasting world going? Because it's saturated right now. Like you said, it's a tough business right now. Where do you really see it going in the future?
Well, I think in the end, and this is no disrespect to any other broadcasting companies, but I think in the end, it's going to be harder for the small companies like myself, Racinboys, to compete because what we're seeing in our industry is a lot of people throwing money at broadcast, right? Mm-hmm. We do revenue sharing with racetracks at times when we do some of these broadcasts, right? But we don't go in and we pay an amount in advance to broadcast a race. And I think that's where the little companies like Racinboys is going to get hurt in the future because there's other companies that just have the budget to be able to do it. They're able to run in and just throw down 10,000, 15,000, 30,000, whatever it takes, to get in an event. It depends on the magnitude of the event. I mean, how much somebody's going to pay. But, heck, sometimes you get a local promoter. We've talked to local promoters before and it said, "Hey, we'd like to come out there and do it." Well, all right, if you give me $2,000. Well, you can't justify doing a local show and paying $2,000 to do it. You'd be broke in, no time. So I think that's the biggest challenge is just being able to keep up the Joneses. I mean, I'm not saying that we're not up for the task, but, that there's a lot of work involved in trying to do that.
And I think something you just said there is so true. And I think it's something that I didn't realize before getting into this industry, but the margins are so thin. When you're talking about, because we do the same thing with Dirt to Media, we offer revenue sharing to the tracks, and people, I think, realize, we always joke that people think it's easy money. We're just making money hand over fist. And when you get to the end of the day and you really break down once you've paid out your employees and you've paid the track and you've covered everything, the margins for actually making anything are really tough. You got to work it really hard to be able to make something.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, listen, you could lose your ass real quick. One event, right? I mean, it's the truth. We've done it. Everybody's done it. Everybody's went in and went, oh, that wasn't so good, right? We get all these people that that you think, oh, that this event makes sense, but then after you do the event, you go, what was I thinking?
Yeah, you can get excited about an event beforehand a lot faster than afterwards.
Yeah, no, for sure. But it's I think that our industry is as good as it's ever been, though. Right now, I mean, you look at the quality of people like Flo and Dirt Vision, and what they bring to the table. I mean, listen, let's face it. Dirt Vision sets the standards for what we do in our business, as far as I'm concerned. This is nothing against Flo, and they're good partners of ours. But let's face it, Brian Dunlap is as smart as they come in this industry, right? I think when I need to call somebody for advice, usually the first person I call is Brian Dunlap, because I think he's just a genius. He can make his own equipment. He can design equipment. The production that Dirt Vision gives us, in my world, I don't think there's anybody even nearly as close as him. I mean, now granted, I think our Chili Bowl broadcast is there, right? But that's only one broadcast a year. So other than that, and Flo does a great job with what they do. They've been great partners of ours. The smartest thing Flo ever did was get Michael Rigsby over there. I think that was just a coup, really,
Yep.
to be able to get him over there, right? And seriously, I
It
mean,
is.
he to get somebody to pull him away from Dirt on Dirt and to bring him into the fold over there, it couldn't have been it was the smartest thing they've ever done.
Yeah,
really.
and no matter what the number is, there's always been speculation what the number was to get him there. It was a steal no matter what the number was. I mean, what Rigsby brings to the table is well worth it.
Listen, Rigsby ain't going to be panhandling anytime soon.
No, that's for sure. 100%.
Right.
So, Scott, this is the interesting thing to me, too. And we always talk about how the racing bug, once it bites you, it's in you and it's hard to get out of it. But you've been involved in this sport since 1977, as you said earlier. What excites you today? What excites you to see, on the track in the racing industry?
A track that's got a top and a bottom and slick in the middle. Listen, if you can give me something on the bottom and something up on the top and give a nice slick center where a guy can give you a huge slide job, there's nothing that gets me more excited than somebody throwing a right rear at somebody. Listen, I never, all the years that I raced, never drove an open wheel car. Oh, I take that back. I drove a 1200 mini sprint one time, and I ran fifth in it. And I was so tired at the end, I couldn't even get my helmet undone because they didn't have power steering, and I wimped out, really, to be honest with you. But I never drove an open wheel car. But it's so funny that's where I get my pleasure now, is watching open wheel cars more than anything. Now, most people that know me know that I am a closet pavement guy. A place like Winchester, Salem, the old I-70 Speedway, you want to get me excited, take me to one of those racetracks, because there's nothing better in my mind than a big old half mile with a bunch of banking in it, where it proves where the guys are the bravest. I mean, seriously, at I-70, the guy that was the bravest could get up on the outside of somebody and pass, right? I love that, because a lot of guys just fall in and follow on some of those big tracks like that. So anyway, I'm sorry. I'm just a big kind of Bristol, Salem, Winchester. Unfortunately, I-70 no longer like that. They tore it, they tore the racetrack up and they put that new track in. It's beautiful. Absolutely gorgeous facility.
Yeah, I do have to agree with you, and I grew up watching open wheel cars. It's kind of how we opened the show here. Matt, my partner here, has always been a late model guy, but in the back, growing up here in southern Indiana, Salem Speedway has always been one of the most special places that you could go watch racing. And I agree with you 100% when you talk about that. The guts that guys have to go around that place the way they do is unbelievable, getting a chance to watch them.
Well, no doubt. Did you ever go to the I-70 Speedway, Matt? Did you ever see that place?
I never made it over there.
Yeah. Well, it was 28-degree banking. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's a tad bigger than Salem and Winchester. Do you know the size? Because I-70 was 0.566. Do you know what?
I don't know the exact.
I don't know the exact size. I don't know exactly.
And they don't have a dog leg down the back straightaway like I-70 had.
No, they don't.
No.
Well, I suggest you go back and you look at a video that we put together of I-70 Speedway. It was in the 90s, and a guy filmed a lot of races there. And he gave me the video, and I went through there and I took all the wrecks out of it. And it's a decade of carnage. And just go look at that I-70 video, and I promise you, after you watch it, you'll think that no less than 7, 8, 9 people died. Nobody ever died. There. It's a miracle, really, to be honest with you.
And Scott, when we turn to some of these drivers, obviously a lot of excitement right now around racing. I think that it's on the upswing, especially, the local stuff. But who are some of these drivers that you're getting the chance to see that really are exciting you about the future?
Man, that's a pretty good question right there. Chase Randall is a guy that I think is Ryan Timms. Got to keep an eye on that kid. I think he's going to be really special. Those are some of the guys that I'm watching with the national tour right now. There's so many up and coming micro drivers that are coming up from places like Port City, Sweet Springs, Deming up in the Pacific Northwest. We talk about these kids. I want to take up for the rich kids here just for a second. Okay. I think the rich kids, they get a lot of flack because their daddy buys their way into a ride. But let's face it, a lot of these rich kids are outstanding race car drivers. And they're only blessed to have their parents that have money, right? I'll never forget one time, Tony Bruce Jr., I'll tell you, he told me the story. I won't tell you who he was talking about. But this one kid, he was a rich kid, and he showed his butt one night. Tony Bruce Jr. looked at me, and he goes, those are the kind of kids that give rich kids a bad name. And it's true, because there is a lot of really good, wealthy kids that are really great drivers, Ryan Timms. They can buy anything they want. They've got a whole crew of people. They've got a midget one place. They got a 360 sprint car here. They can do whatever they want, right? And they can hire 2 or 3 crew chiefs if they want. They got everything, the resources and everything they need. I'm not going to hate on the kid. Look how talented he is, how well he runs. So I just kind of want to take up for some of the spoiled rich kids out there. They're not all bad kids, and they're not all spoiled and just given a good car and going fast. Some of them are really good drivers.
But that's a really interesting perspective that I don't think we ever really talk about. In other sports, you don't get that hatred of those kids coming up. Like when you talk about Peyton Manning being Archie Manning's son, they didn't hate on him because, you had wealth, or Ken Griffey Jr. coming up under Ken Griffey. There was never that hatred of where you come from. But you're exactly right. In motorsports, if you're the rich kid, it's looked at as you've had everything paved your way.
That's called jealousy.
Yeah, but exactly, Matt. You nailed it right there. That is nothing but jealousy. And I think some people just need to get over the whole rich kid thing. Listen, I'm just wish that I could have been a spoiled rich kid.
Don't we all?
That's what I was going to say.
Instead of being a poor white kid. That's all I was. I was just a poor kid that didn't have anything. And I remember that just like, hey, man, if I'm going to race, I'm going to have to figure out how to buy my own race car. My first race car had $200 in it. My second race car, I bought it race ready, 1978, for $275.
Wow.
Straight up. That's the honest God truth. And it was painted, and it was number 160. My dear friend Jim Penny owned that race car. He was the 1965 Jalopy champion at Ascot Park. Great friend of mine, passed away many years ago. Great racing historian. And I bought this car from him. He knew I didn't have any money, so he basically gave it to me for $275. I took it home. I painted over the zero, and I was 16 for the rest of my life almost.
That's amazing. To think about your whole timeline there, from a $275 race ready car to an ARCA team. The bills changed a lot over those years.
Let me tell you, I put 2 ARCA cars in one race out of Kansas Speedway. JJ Sonnevelt, one of my dear friends, my crew chief for so many years with my local program. And I put him in a car, and I blew up in that race. My motor, I was running in the top 10, blew up. JJ was running in the top 10. He crashed. He crashed before I blew up. I came around, the yellow comes out. I come around, and I look up, and there's my car in a wad up in the wall. And that made me sick. So then I came back around, and I ended up blowing up my motor running in the top 10. And then at the end of the race, I went to pay my tire bill. It was $12,500.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
Tire bill.
Wow. Wow.
You want to spend some money? Get an ARCA car. Let me tell you, that race where we ran second with Boyer, ran second. I spent $33,000 to run that race. Second place paid $7,500. It only paid $12,000 to win.
That's not still not changed though. That's still the way racing is.
The math's never good.
Yeah.
Right.
But you know, if you would have bought media equipment instead of buying ARCA cars, you'd be as big as ESPN right now, man.
No, I would have had to do that probably. What was ESPN come on? 1979, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think it was 79. Yep. But I like to think that we were one of the first people to do it. Hey, and I want to give a shout out to Greg Stevens, too, the captain. He's in a pretty tough battle right now. He is definitely one of the pioneers of our sport for sure.
Scott, I want to ask you this too, man. You've been all over the place, broadcasted at tracks all over the United States. What's the track that's out there that you've not broadcast at yet that's that bucket list track you'd love to get the chance to?
Gosh, I don't know. I think I've been to all the great racetracks. I can't think of one racetrack that I really just am dying to go see race. I think I've been to so many of the great dirt tracks around the country. Gosh, I can't think of one. I'm sorry. I can't. You know what? I will say this. If there was a track, I haven't been to Salem.
There you go.
So if I was going to say any place, are they racing at Winchester still?
I can't answer that. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either.
One of those 2 tracks would be a bucket list track. Yeah, for sure. Because they're so much like I-70. They bring back fond memories. I think I won 20-some races. The super truck, I held the track record at I-70 for a little while. And I love those kind of racetracks, man. It's just nothing like a high bank asphalt racetrack for me.
I agree 110% on that one.
Yep.
Scott, I want to say this, man, before we let you go. First of all, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come on the show. And another token of appreciation, man, you guys upgraded trailers this year and got you a new Racinboys production trailer, and were kind enough to sell us your previous production trailer. And Ryan Bowling and myself say almost weekly that's the best purchase we've ever made. So I want to extend my thanks to you for offering that to us.
Well, let me tell you something. I appreciate you running that thing around with Racinboys on it, just so you know.
Anytime there's problems, we just tell them we're Racinboys.
Yeah. If there's any kind of issues, I don't know. Just contact Scott at Racinboys. He'll be your contact.
Yeah.
Right. But listen, I appreciate you guys having me on. It's anytime. Listen, you guys are doing what it takes to keep this industry alive, and podcasts like this, I think that's going to be my future. I kind of leaked it out a little bit last week on our radio show that we do on Saturday mornings, that I think a 2-hour daily podcast is in my future, coming up in the near future. So
That sounds pretty amazing.
Pretty cool.
Well, I can promise you this: you'll have 2 listeners right here once you get it going.
Definitely.
I appreciate it, guys.
Hey, thanks, Scott, man. We appreciate you.
All right, guys. See you later.
All right. All right. Again, Matt, that was president of Racinboys, Scott Traylor. And, man, I know we got into a little bit of the open wheel stuff there. We joke with you, but, Matt, you got to love, that's a guy that's a racing historian very similar to you.
I was very impressed, and I'm jealous now because he says he can't think of a track that he hasn't been to, so I guess I need to get my game together and get to a lot more tracks.
Well, I can tell you just this year, I know that, and I will miss some. I know that they had a swing. They were in Michigan for a while. They hit a couple tracks in Pennsylvania.
Wow.
They were down at Bulls Gap in Tennessee.
I've been there.
They've been out to Washington State this year. They are literally all over. They were in South Dakota, I believe, last weekend. The pictures were unbelievable. I mean, the mountains behind the racetrack, and it was just, it looks like a painting.
I felt good, for 2 reasons. He's a historian like that, and I wasn't the oldest guy in the podcast.
No, but again,
that made me feel good.
For people who don't know, and I said it to Scott there, but obviously what Ryan Bowling and I have tried to do with Dirt to Media, and Ryan started the company. I'm just a tag along, but trying to, our tagline, I guess it would be, is taking local racing worldwide, and that's always been our focus. And Scott is a guy that we definitely look up to. It's what he has done, and he made it sound so easy that things just kind of fell in his lap, but it's not true. The dude works tirelessly. But he made us a great deal on a production trailer that really changed our entire program. It's opened up doors for us and allowed us to do a lot of things that we've never been able to do before.
I'll tell you what, if you would have followed him around for his life story, it would have been a good time. You could tell that.
Oh yeah, the documentary someday that they're going to shoot on Scott Traylor is going to be pretty amazing. I
agree.
You talk about going from ARCA to the Chili Bowl to, I mean, he's been all over the place. And so again, just when you start digging into people in this industry, you will find great stories, great people. And it goes back to, it's just like the drivers in the pits when we talk about the family aspect. And, we talked about Heather Stassa there at the beginning, and it's true. Like, anytime we face a problem, we call Heather, and Heather, remotes in, fixes things for us, sets things up. And you have to have those people in this industry, and they're all over the place. So just really, really cool getting the chance to talk to Scott tonight.
I agree. It was very cool. I didn't have a lot to say on the media side because that's your guys' thing, but it's interesting to listen to his story. I mean, that was awesome.
Yeah, it blows me away. I'm sitting here thinking right now of trying to go buy an ARCA team, and the thought of that. I'm thinking about a $12,500 tire bill at the end of the day.
Yeah.
That makes me sick to my stomach. So Matt, obviously it doesn't look like Mother Nature's going to play well, but fingers crossed, we're holding out it does. Looking ahead to the weekend here, local weekly racing planned for Thunder Valley Raceway Park on Friday night. You can catch all that action live with your VIP subscription on dirttomedia.tv. And then turn around on Saturday night. It is the Bobby Wilson Memorial. I don't know what it is about the Bobby Wilson Memorial and rain. We were rained out earlier this summer. Rescheduled here for this Saturday. Looking like rain again, but an exciting race. I'm really, really ready to see that race brought over to Brownstown and see what can be done with it. And then on Sunday, our Indiana Pro Late Model guys will be headed up to Circle City for another travel show and turning right back around and traveling again next Friday.
Yes, to
Paragon. So a lot of racing coming up here in the next couple weeks. Hopefully Mother Nature plays kind. But, man, looking at the forecast, it doesn't look strong.
No, it's going to be kind of scary, I think.
So,
yeah, like I said, get that arc built, man.
yeah, we may have boat races, and
Yeah.
the regatta was just a couple weekends ago. I don't know what boats are left around. We might run those at Brownstown. So,
Might have to run something.
but Matt, looking ahead, here at the midway point, just to take a chance here real quick before we jump off and reflect. What has been that standout story or storyline from this season of racing that's just been to you like, man?
I really don't know. There's been a lot of little stories there.
So I'm going to jump out and I'm going to say, I think the storyline for me is the early dominance of Tyler Neal. And I think we all knew everybody else would catch up and start challenging him, but, there's no doubt you could see the talent he had, especially towards the close of last year. But to come out 6 out of the first 8, at different tracks, do it in different fashions, that to me is the storyline of the year. But just to bring it all back into perspective, it's only a 50-point gap between first and second with Steve Peden. So it's going to be a lot of excitement down the stretch here as well.
I think it's going to get closer because I think Shelby and Raymond both have another win, and then before the season's out. So, you definitely can't rule those two guys out.
And I'm going to say there's probably 2 wins out of guys that haven't won a race yet either.
That's what I was getting ready to say. There's a few dark horses.
Tyler Kane, Tyler Collins, a Zach Burton. There are some guys back there in the pack that I could see picking up a win, that could shake up the points as well.
Well, if you remember, near the end of the year last year, Tyler and Isley ended up in a crate.
That is true.
And, who might just show up one night and shake the whole thing up.
So, guys, if you get the chance, man, get out to a local racetrack. Obviously, like we said, we don't know what the weather's going to do, but get out and support these local tracks. It's you can't find better fun. We say it all the time. You can't find better fun for the money. I mean, you really, really can't. So, hands down, excited about going forward next week. You want to let everybody know who our guest is going to be on next week?
It's going to be Grant Simpson.
Absolutely. So we'll have
number 96 super stock driver,
Grant.
grandson of Kenny Simpson.
So Grant will be in studio with us next Wednesday night. For those who maybe haven't caught up yet, we are going to be live every week again. Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. So be sure to join us and check us out. Matt, you got anything else?
That's it.
All right, guys. We'll catch you next Wednesday.